Quiet your mind. Dim the lights. Someone out there is about to confess something they swore they'd take to the grave. And you're just here to listen. Welcome to One More Sin. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? I want to know who's listening in the dark tonight.
I made him disappear and no one cared. I'm going to tell you something that should make you close this tab, delete your history, and pretend you never found these words. But you won't. People like you never do. You'll keep reading because somewhere deep in that civilized brain of yours, you need to know that monsters exist, that we walk among you, that we smile at you in coffee shops, and hold doors open and say please and thank you like we mean it. I made a man disappear 17 months ago, not metaphorically, not spiritually. I removed him from existence so thoroughly that even his own mother stopped looking for him after 6 weeks. And the worst part, or maybe the best part, depending on how you look at it, is that no one really cared. His name was Marcus Chen, 34 years old, software developer, mild lactose intolerance, owned a rescue dog named Biscuit that he walked every morning at 6:15 a.m. sharp. I know these things because I studied him for 4 months before I decided he had to go. You're probably expecting me to say I'm sorry, that guilt eats at me, that I see his face when I close my eyes. I don't. I sleep 8 hours every night, deep and dreamless. I wake up refreshed. I make excellent French press coffee and read the news while my cat Theodore purrs on my lap. Sometimes I even walk past the bench where Marcus used to eat his lunch, turkey and Swiss on wheat, no mayo, every Tuesday and Thursday, and I feel nothing except maybe a slight satisfaction that the view is unobstructed now. You want to stop reading? I can feel it through the screen, but you won't, because you need to understand how someone could do this, how someone could be this. Let me tell you something about disappearing people. It's surprisingly easy when you choose the right person. The world is full of Marcus Chens, people who live alone, work remotely, order groceries online, text their families twice a month with the same recycled phrases. Busy with work. Let's catch up soon. Miss you too. The infrastructure of modern life makes isolation feel like connection. We mistake digital breadcrumbs for presence. A Facebook status update becomes proof of life. An email auto-response grants weeks of assumed existence. Marcus disappeared on a Thursday. It was raining, which felt appropriate but wasn't planned. I don't believe in cosmic significance. Rain is just water falling from the sky. It makes evidence harder to find, but that's simple chemistry, not fate. I'm telling you this now because it's been 17 months and 3 days. The statute of limitations on missing persons investigations varies by state, but interest fades much faster. After the first 48 hours, the chances drop. After a month, you're a file in a drawer. After a year, you're a cold case that gets a cursory review when some rookie detective needs busy work. After 17 months, you're just gone, and I'm still here, drinking my coffee, petting my cat, watching the empty bench where someone used to eat turkey sandwiches and believe the world was essentially good. You think you want to know why I did it? You think there must be a reason that makes sense. Revenge, money, passion, madness. Something to file this away in a category that lets you sleep tonight. But sometimes people just need to disappear, and sometimes there's someone willing to make that happen. My therapist says I have excellent emotional regulation. She has no idea how right she is. The strangest part about making someone vanish isn't the act itself. It's how quickly the world adjusts, how seamlessly the gap closes. Marcus's company replaced him within 3 weeks. His apartment was rented within 2 months. Biscuit found a new home with a family that posts photos of him on Instagram. He looks happy. Everyone looks happy.
I'm going to tell you how I did it. Not because I want to be caught. I won't be. But because I think you deserve to know how easy it is. How little it takes to erase someone from the world when that someone was barely holding on to it in the first place.
But first, let me tell you about the first time I realized I was different. Because Marcus wasn't the first person I made disappear. He was just the first one nobody looked for. I was 8 years old when I watched my grandmother die. Not watched like a tragedy unfolding. Watched like a science experiment. She was making Sunday dinner, pot roast, mashed potatoes, those little pearl onions she knew I hated but included anyway. When her hand went to her chest, the wooden spoon clattered on the linoleum. She looked at me with eyes that were asking for something I didn't know how to give. I should have called for help, should have screamed for my mother who was upstairs folding laundry. should have felt something other than curiosity about the way her face changed colors. Purple to red to white to gray. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table and finished my juice box. Apple, the kind with the foil top you had to puncture just right or it would spray everywhere. I was very careful, very precise. I didn't spill a drop while she collapsed behind me, her breathing getting weird and wet. When my mother found us 10 minutes later, I was drawing at the table. Horses, I think. I was going through a horse phase. She screamed and pushed me aside, tried CPR she'd learned from a library book, called 911 with fingers that couldn't hit the right buttons. "Why didn't you call for help?" she asked me later, after the paramedics had taken the body away, after the relatives had come and gone, after the pot roast had burned into a black disc on the stove. I remember thinking about my answer very carefully. Even at 8, I understood that some truths were dangerous. "I didn't know she was dying," I said. "I thought she was playing." My mother held me then, rocked me like I was traumatized, like I needed comfort. She smelled like fabric softener and grief. I let her hold me because that's what she needed. But all I could think about was how quiet the kitchen had been in those 10 minutes, how peaceful, how the afternoon light had caught the steam still rising from the potatoes. That was the first time I understood I was missing something, some essential piece that made other people scramble and panic and care. It wasn't that I enjoyed watching her die. I didn't feel enjoyment any more than I felt sadness. I just felt interested. The second time was when I was 12. Our neighbor's cat Whiskers, yes, actually named Whiskers, used to kill birds in our backyard. My mother would chase him off, upset about the poor little things, but I'd watch from my bedroom window as he played with them, caught and released, until they stopped moving. One day I found Whiskers in our garage. He'd gotten in somehow and couldn't get out. Had been there for days, probably. He was weak, dehydrated, easy to catch. I could have opened the garage door, could have carried him back to Mrs. Patterson next door, could have given him water from the hose. Instead, I built him a comfortable box, gave him an old towel, and then I put the box in the storage closet behind the Christmas decorations, somewhere no one would look until December. It was March. I checked on him every day after school, documented the changes, how long it took for the meowing to stop, for the scratching to cease, for the smell to start. I was conducting an experiment in disappearance, in how things stopped being. When Mrs. Patterson put up missing cat posters, I helped her tape them to telephone poles. When she cried about losing her baby, I patted her shoulder with what I'd learned was the appropriate pressure. Not too light, that seems dismissive. Not too firm, that seems aggressive. Just right, just human. They found Whiskers in December, of course. My parents assumed he'd gotten trapped while they were putting away summer things. A tragic accident. My mother cried. My father buried him in the backyard with a solemnity that seemed excessive for a cat that wasn't even ours. I stood at the tiny grave and practiced looking sad. I'd gotten better at it by then. Lower the eyebrows just a touch. Let the mouth droop, but not too much. Think about something genuinely unfortunate, like the cancellation of a TV show I enjoyed, to bring moisture to the eyes. "Poor Whiskers," I said. "You're such a sensitive soul," my mother said, squeezing my shoulder. If only she knew. By high school, I'd learned to be charming. It's easier than you'd think. People want to like you. They want to believe you're good. All you have to do is give them reasons. Smile at the right moments. Remember birthdays. Ask about their problems and nod while they talk. Mirror their emotions back at them like a clean reflection. I was popular, not queen bee popular. That requires actual feeling, actual investment in the social hierarchy, but well-liked. Invited to parties, included in group projects. Dating was easy too. Teenage boys are remarkably simple creatures. Laugh at their jokes, touch their arms, pretend their thoughts are profound. I dated a boy named Jamie junior year. Sweet kid, wrote me poetry that didn't quite rhyme, gave me wildflowers picked from the median of the highway, told me he loved me exactly 3 weeks after our first kiss, which I'd noted was statistically average for teenage declarations. When he said it, I said it back. Perfectly timed, right inflection, even managed to make my pupils dilate by thinking about something I actually wanted, early acceptance to Columbia. We dated for 6 months. He was my alibi for normalcy, my proof that I could form attachments, could be part of things, could care. The night he caught me dissecting a mouse in my bedroom, not for school, just for curiosity, was the night I learned that sometimes the mask slips, and when it does, you have to be ready with another mask underneath. It's for AP Biology, I said quickly, watching his face cycle through disgust, confusion, fear. Extra credit. I know it's gross, but... You're doing it on your bed, he said. His voice had gone high. Scared. I looked down at the careful arrangement, the surgical precision, the labeled organs in tiny containers, the notes in handwriting too neat for emergency homework. I'm very dedicated to my grades, I said. He left. Told people we broke up because I was too intense about school. Everyone accepted it. I was, after all, headed to Columbia. Of course I was intense about school. But Jamie never looked at me the same way, and I knew that one day that could be a problem. That's when I started keeping lists. Not written down. I'm not stupid. Mental lists. People who'd seen too much. People who might talk. People who knew the wrong things. Jamie moved to California after graduation. Berkeley. Pre-med. I helped him pack, actually. Gave him good advice about dorm life. Hugged him goodbye at his going-away party. Felt his body go rigid in my arms. I wonder sometimes if he still thinks about the mouse. If he tells therapists about his high school girlfriend who kept organs in baby food jars. If he's ever Googled my name to make sure I haven't made the news. He shouldn't worry. I've gotten much better at choosing who sees what. Marcus, for instance, never saw it coming. Never saw me at all, really. That's the key to making someone disappear. Choose someone who's already halfway gone. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand the mask first. How I built it. How I wear it. How I've been wearing it while writing this. The secret to being liked is this: become a mirror. Not literally, though. I did practice expressions in actual mirrors for years. Still do sometimes when I need to nail something specific. Grief is particularly tricky. Too much and you're melodramatic. Too little and you're cold. But I'm talking about something deeper. People love themselves. They love seeing their own thoughts, feelings, and values reflected back at them in slightly different packaging. So I became 1,000 different mirrors, each one perfectly angled for whoever was looking. At Columbia, I majored in psychology. Beautiful irony, isn't it? Learning the mechanics of empathy without feeling it is like studying a language you'll never speak. But it made me fluent in humanity. I learned the vocabulary of connection, the grammar of care, the syntax of sympathy. My advisor, Dr. Patricia Winters, thought I was brilliant. You have such insight into human behavior, she'd say, reviewing my papers on attachment theory and emotional development. It's like you can see right through people. She had no idea how literal that was. I joined study groups and brought homemade cookies, chocolate chip, because they're statistically the most universally enjoyed. I remembered everyone's names, their hometowns, their anxieties about upcoming exams. When Rachel from my abnormal psych class cried about her parents' divorce, I held her for exactly the right amount of time, long enough to seem caring, not so long it became awkward. When Tom from statistics confessed he was struggling with his sexuality, I shared a carefully crafted story about my cousin who'd gone through the same thing. I didn't have a cousin, but Tom didn't need truth. He needed connection. By senior year, I was the person everyone came to with problems, the good listener, the one who gave thoughtful advice, the friend who remembered your coffee order and picked up an extra one when you'd had a rough night. I graduated summa cum laude with a thesis on cognitive empathy and social integration. My professor called it groundbreaking insight into how we perform care in modern society. She thought I was critiquing performance. I was writing an instruction manual. After college, I got a job at a nonprofit, perfect cover for someone like me. Surrounding yourself with do-gooders makes you look like one by association. I worked in donor relations, which meant I spent my days convincing rich people to care about poor people. The irony wasn't lost on me, a person incapable of caring, professionally manufacturing it in others. I was excellent at it. Increased donations by 47% in my first year. You just have a gift, my boss, Sandra, would say. You make people want to be better. What I actually did was make people feel like they already were better. Subtle difference. Massive results. My coworkers loved me. I was the one who organized birthday celebrations, who noticed new haircuts, who asked about sick pets and aging parents. I kept a spreadsheet encrypted, of course, tracking personal details. Jim's daughter played violin. Sarah's mother had dementia. Keiko was trying to get pregnant. Small data points that, when referenced at the right moment, created the illusion of care. You're such a good friend, Keiko said once, after I'd sent her an article about fertility nutrition. You really pay attention. I did pay attention. Just not for the reasons she thought. Dating in my 20s was an advanced course in mimicry, men, and it was mostly men, though I experimented with women to broaden my performance range, were shockingly easy to read. They telegraphed their needs like neon signs. The intellectual wanted debate and challenge. The athlete wanted admiration and energy. The artist wanted a muse who understood his depths. I became all of it, a shapeshifter in designer jeans and the right amount of mascara. There was Daniel, the investment banker who needed someone to make him feel like Gordon Gekko was a romantic hero. I wore power suits to his office parties and learned enough about futures trading to ask intelligent questions. We dated for 8 months until he got transferred to Hong Kong. He wanted me to come. I acted devastated to stay. There was Amit, the pediatric surgeon who needed to feel like a hero outside the OR too. I volunteered at the children's hospital, learned to bake cookies shaped like stethoscopes, listened to his stories about saving lives with the wide-eyed admiration he craved. We lasted a year until he proposed. I said yes, then discovered a sudden calling to join the Peace Corps. He was too good to ask me to stay. There was Sophie, the bartender with a photography hobby who needed someone to believe she was more than her night job. I posed for her projects, attended gallery openings for her friends, validated her artist's soul. We broke up when she wanted to move in together. I invented a phobia of commitment stemming from my parents' divorce. My parents were still happily married. Each relationship was a master class in becoming what someone needed, and when it ended, always on my terms, always with them thinking it was circumstance or bad timing or their own fault, they remembered me fondly, the one who got away, the one who understood them like no one else. You're going to make someone very happy someday. Daniel emailed from Hong Kong. I've never connected with anyone like you. Amit texted 6 months after our breakup. You taught me to believe in myself. Sophie posted on Instagram under a photo I'd let her take. They were all wrong. I wasn't going to make anyone happy. I was just very good at making people think they were happy around me. The real mastery came in the moments when the mask should have slipped but didn't, when normal people would have broken character. Like when my coworker Sarah's mother finally died after years of dementia. I was the first person she called, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. I drove to her apartment at 2 a.m., held her while she cried, made her tea, said all the right things about grief and love, and how her mother was at peace now. Inside, I felt nothing. Sarah's mother was simply a data point that had changed from alive with dementia to deceased, but I performed grief's companion flawlessly. I even managed to cry a little, a trick I'd learned involving strategic yawning and thinking about eye strain. Or when my college roommate Lisa called to tell me she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer, I flew across the country to be with her for her first chemo treatment, held her hand, joked when she needed levity, cried when she needed companionship and fear, shaved my own head when she lost her hair, selling it as solidarity. Really, I'd been wanting to try a pixie cut anyway. Lisa survived, by the way. Still sends me Christmas cards calling me her angel and truest friend. I send cards back with thoughtful messages I craft using a template I developed based on successful sympathy card linguistics. The mask never came off. Not during funerals or weddings or birth announcements or interventions. I was everyone's rock, everyone's shoulder, everyone's safe space. And none of them knew they were confiding in a void. The closest I ever came to being caught was with Marcus, actually, but not in the way you'd think. It wasn't suspicion that made him dangerous. It was recognition. 3 months before he disappeared, we were at the same conference, some tech thing I was attending for donor prospecting. He was presenting on adaptive AI or something equally forgettable. But during the networking happy hour, our eyes met across the room, and I saw something I'd never seen before. He saw me, not the performance, not the carefully crafted persona. Me. And instead of running, he smiled. Marcus approached me at that networking event with a gin and tonic in each hand. One for him, one for me. I hadn't told him I drank gin and tonics. Most people assume wine for women at these things, but he knew. You look bored, he said. Not hello or I'm Marcus's or any of the standard networking scripts. Just an observation, an accurate one. I'm fascinated, I lied, taking the drink. The presentation on blockchain integration was riveting. He laughed, not politely but genuinely, like I'd told an actual joke. There wasn't a presentation on blockchain integration. I had been caught in a meaningless lie. It should have meant nothing. People exaggerate at these things all the time. But the way he looked at me, Amused, knowing, utterly unafraid, made something shift in my chest. Not feelings. I don't have those. More like tectonic plates grinding against each other before an earthquake. You're right, I said. I wasn't paying attention. Neither was I. He sipped his drink, eyes never leaving mine. I was watching you instead. Any other man saying that would have sounded creepy. Marcus made it sound like a simple statement of fact, which I would learn was his gift. He said true things like they were nothing special. Why? I asked. Because you're the only person here who looks like they're performing instead of living. There it was, the recognition I'd seen across the room. He'd spotted the mask not because he was looking for it, but because he wore one too. We left the conference together. Not sexually. That would come later, though it was never the point. We walked through downtown Seattle, talking about the architecture of deception, how exhausting it was to maintain other people's expectations, how lonely it was to succeed at being loved for someone you weren't. Sometimes, he said, stopping to look at his reflection in a dark storefront window, I forget which one is real, the performance or the person underneath. What makes you think there's a difference? I asked. He turned to me then, and for the first time in my life, I felt seen. Not caught. Not exposed. Seen. Because you're asking that question, he said. We exchanged numbers, started texting. Nothing profound. Observations about the absurdity of human rituals. Screenshots of particularly vapid social media posts. Links to articles about imposter syndrome, with comments like, if only they knew. 3 weeks later, he sent me a photo of himself at a company party, surrounded by laughing colleagues, his own smile bright and convincing. The caption read, Academy Award worthy. I sent back a photo from my nonprofit's gala where I was hugging a major donor with tears in my eyes. Glycerin drops, perfectly timed. Amateur. This got us a $2 million commitment. Teach me, he replied. So I did. We met for coffee, then drinks, then long walks where we dissected the mechanics of human connection like med students with a cadaver. I taught him about micro-expressions, about the 17 distinct types of smiles and when to deploy each one. He taught me about algorithmic thinking, how to optimize social interactions for maximum return with minimum effort. We became each other's safe space in the strangest way, the only place where we could drop the act. Except I wasn't dropping anything. I was adding layers. Because Marcus was wrong about one thing. There wasn't a person underneath my performance. The performance was all there was. But with him, I had to perform having a hidden authentic self. I had to pretend to be pretending, rather than simply being empty. It was the most complex role I'd ever played, and I became obsessed with perfecting it. I studied him the way I'd studied that mouse in high school, cataloged his habits, the way he touched his ear when he was about to tell a truth, how his laugh changed pitch when it was genuine versus manufactured, the specific brand of melancholy that washed over his face when he thought no one was looking. He lived alone in a converted loft in Belltown, minimalist decor that suggested depth through absence, expensive espresso machine he used religiously, a guitar he couldn't actually play displayed artfully in the corner. The carefully curated life of someone trying to convince themselves they had taste instead of just loneliness. I learned his routines. Morning run at 6 a.m., really 6:15, but he liked the idea of 6. Work from home Mondays and Fridays. Therapy on Wednesday afternoons that he told his colleagues was a standing client meeting. Thai food on Thursdays. Existential crisis on Sunday nights. Do you ever think about disappearing? He asked one night. We were on his roof deck. Seattle spread out below us like a circuit board. He was on his third whiskey, in vino veritas, but for Marcus, it was Jameson that loosened the locks. How do you mean? I asked carefully. Just stopping. The performance. The maintenance. The whole exhausting charade. Becoming nobody. Everyone thinks about that. No, he said, turning to me with those eyes that saw too much. They think about running away, starting over, being someone new. I'm talking about erasure, complete deletion, becoming nothing. That's impossible, I said. We always leave traces. Do we? He was looking at the city lights, but I could tell he was seeing something else. Or do we just tell ourselves that to feel important? What if disappearing is easier than everyone thinks? What if the world is actually eager to forget us? That's when I knew I was going to kill him. Not because he was dangerous, not because I hated him, but because he was right. The world was eager to forget, and I needed to know if I could make it happen. But more than that, and this is the part that would disturb you if you truly understood it, I needed to know if making him disappear would make me feel something. Anything. Marcus was the closest I'd ever come to connection. If erasing him didn't generate some kind of emotional response, then I would finally have proof of what I'd always suspected. I wasn't wearing a mask. I was one. The obsession grew like a tumor, metastasized through every interaction. When we'd have our performed conversations about authenticity, I'd be calculating how long it would take for his employer to replace him. When he'd text me at 2 a.m. with some half-drunk insight about the futility of human connection, I'd be researching how long DNA evidence lasted in various conditions. I started dreaming about it. Not violent dreams. Violence was never the point. Clean dreams. Surgical. Marcus there one moment, gone the next, the world seamlessly closing the gap like water filling a footprint in the sand. "You're different lately," he said one night. We were at his place. He'd cooked. Salmon with that cauliflower rice that people pretend tastes good. More present. "Is that bad?" I asked. "No. It's terrifying." He smiled when he said it, but his hand trembled slightly as he reached for his wine. "I feel like you're really seeing me for the first time. All of me." "I am," I said, and for once it wasn't a lie. I saw him completely. Every vulnerability, every gap in his carefully constructed life, every place where he could be unraveled. And I saw exactly how to make him disappear. The irony was beautiful. The one person who understood the performance of being human would vanish while performing it. The one person who fantasized about erasure would achieve it. But not yet. First, I needed to perfect my own performance. The concerned friend, the worried lover, the last person who saw him alive. I had 4 months to get it exactly right. I should clarify something. Marcus wasn't my first. The first was a hitchhiker named Devon when I was 23. I'd just graduated from Columbia, driving cross-country to start my nonprofit job in Seattle. Somewhere outside Rapid City, South Dakota, I saw him on the side of I-90. Torn flannel, military surplus backpack, sign that said West. I never pick up hitchhikers. It's statistically stupid. But something about the emptiness of that stretch of highway, the way the heat mirages made the asphalt look liquid, the fact that I hadn't spoken to another human in 14 hours, it made me pull over. "Where you headed?" I asked through the cracked window. "Anywhere that isn't here," he said. Perfect answer. The kind of person already erasing themselves. Devon was 28, dishonorably discharged. Girlfriend left him. Family pretended he didn't exist. He'd been walking away from his life for 3 weeks, surviving on truck stop kindness and the occasional construction day job. "Ever feel like you could just vanish and no one would notice?" he asked somewhere around Billings. "Yes," I said, and meant it. We stopped at a motel that night. Separate rooms. I'm not stupid, but we ate dinner together at the attached diner, greasy burgers, and the kind of conversation that only happens between strangers who know they'll never see each other again. He told me about Afghanistan, not the war stories everyone expects, but the quiet moments, watching stars in the desert, the taste of chai made by locals who were probably Taliban but shared it anyway, how he'd killed a kid, 14, maybe 15, who'd been reaching for something that might have been a weapon, but turned out to be a piece of bread. "I see him sometimes," Devon said, dragging a French fry through ketchup and figure eights. "Not like a ghost, more like a question, asking me why I get to keep breathing when he doesn't." "What's the answer?" I asked. "There isn't one. That's the fucking point." We sat in silence for a while. The diner fluorescents buzzed. Someone played Johnny Cash on the jukebox. Devon looked out the window at the nothing that Montana calls a view. "I think about it sometimes," he said finally. "Just walking into that nothing and keeping going until I become part of it." "Why don't you?" He looked at me then. Really looked. "Because I'm a coward. Takes guts to disappear completely. Easier to just fade." That's when I decided, not out of malice or anger or any emotion at all, just simple recognition he wanted to disappear and I wanted to know if I could make it happen. After dinner, I suggested a walk. The motel was on the edge of town, prairie stretching out into darkness. We walked along a dirt access road, talking about nothing. The stars were obscene in their brightness. "Thanks for this," he said. "The ride, the meal, the company. Been a while since someone treated me like a person instead of a problem." "Everyone deserves kindness," I said, touching his arm gently. Comfort, connection, all the things he'd been starving for. He turned to hug me, a real hug, desperate and grateful and human. I had a knife in my jacket pocket, small, sharp, practical. I'd bought it at a truck stop in Minnesota for protection. The irony wasn't lost on me. The human body is surprisingly fragile if you know where to press. Devin didn't suffer, didn't even seem surprised. Just a soft "oh" of understanding, like he'd finally gotten the answer to his question. I left him there in the tall grass, far enough from the road that he wouldn't be found quickly. Took his backpack and ID, drove 3 hours before stopping at another motel, where I burned everything in a barrel behind the building. Homeless people did it all the time. No one looked twice. I watched the news for weeks, months. Nothing. Devin had been right. He'd already been fading. I just finished the process. That should have been enough. The curiosity satisfied. The experiment concluded. But it wasn't. Because Devin had wanted to disappear. He'd been a willing participant, in a way. I needed to know if I could make someone vanish who was still clinging to existence. Someone whose absence would be noticed, investigated, mourned. Someone like Marcus. The preparation took months. Not the killing. That part is always simpler than people think. The real work is in the aftermath. Creating reasons for absence. Laying false trails. Managing the slow dissolution of a life. I studied missing persons cases. Learned that most adults who disappear do so voluntarily. Mental health breaks. Debt. Secret lives catching up. The police look for signs of foul play. But if those signs don't exist, they default to the easiest explanation: he left. So I helped Marcus create a leaving life. You should take that contract in Bangkok, I told him over coffee. The 6-month one. It would be good for you. It's just running away, he said. Sometimes running away is the first step to finding yourself. He applied, got accepted. Told friends he was considering it. I helped him research apartments in Bangkok, even though he'd never go. Digital breadcrumbs leading somewhere he'd never arrive. I encouraged his isolation. You need space to figure things out. Validated his withdrawal. Not everyone deserves access to you. Became the only person he confided in about how tired he was. How empty, how appealing erasure had become. I've been thinking about what you said, he told me one night in February, about disappearing being impossible. What about it? I think you're wrong. I think people disappear all the time. We just call it something else. Depression, burnout, finding themselves. He was standing at his window, Seattle glittering below. What if I just didn't show up anymore? To anything. How long before people stopped looking? They'd look, I said. I'd look. He turned to me with such gratitude it almost registered as feeling. Would you? Really? Of course I lied. I'd never stop looking. 3 weeks later I killed him. It was a Thursday night, raining, like I mentioned. He'd texted that he was having another spiral, couldn't sleep, couldn't turn off his brain. I offered to come over, bring tea. Listen. You're the only real thing in my life, he said when I arrived. He looked terrible, beautiful in that destroyed way that makes people want to save each other. I made him tea, chamomile with honey, and Ambien. Quite a lot of Ambien, actually. Crushed fine and stirred until invisible. We sat on his couch talking about authenticity and performance and whether anyone ever really knew anyone. His words started slurring around the 20-minute mark. I'm so tired, he said, head drooping. I know, I said. It's okay to rest. When he was unconscious, I ran a bath. Very hot. Lots of bubbles, the kind that would hide the water's color if anyone looked too quickly. I undressed him carefully, respectfully, placed him in the tub, held him under until the bubbles stopped rising. Drowning looks peaceful when the person can't fight. I dried the floor, put his clothes in the hamper, positioned him naturally, someone who'd fallen asleep in warm water after taking something to help him rest. It happens more than you'd think. Accidental drownings in bathtubs, especially with sleep aids involved. But I wasn't done. This was just the body. I needed to disappear the person. I took his laptop, his phone, his backup drives. Not to hide evidence. I was too careful for that. But to control the narrative of his vanishing. Over the next 3 days, I became Marcus Chen. Becoming Marcus was simpler than you'd think. I had his passwords. He'd shared them during one of our conversations about digital authenticity, the irony of protecting virtual selves we'd already admitted were fake. His face recognition worked with him sleeping, before the water. After that, I had everything. First, I sent the emails. Resignation to his company, effective, immediately. I need to focus on my mental health. Please don't contact me. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Professional enough to avoid suspicion, personal enough to discourage follow-up. To his therapist, "I've decided to take a break from our sessions. I think I need to process things on my own for a while. Thank you for everything." To his family, going off grid for a bit, "You know I've been struggling. I'll be in touch when I'm in a better place. Please don't worry." The key was spacing them out. Resignation on Friday morning, like he'd been up all night thinking. Therapist on Friday afternoon, as if the resignation had triggered something. Family on Saturday, making it seem like a gradually formed decision. Then came the digital diaspora, Facebook status about taking a social media break, Instagram story about needing to reconnect with reality, LinkedIn update about pursuing new opportunities. Each platform got a slightly different message, but all pointing the same direction. Marcus was choosing to step back. I moved money from his accounts. Not all at once, that would flag the banks. Small transfers to cash apps, then to prepaid cards, then to nothing. The kind of trail someone leaves when they're planning to live off-grid. I bought camping gear on his credit cards, downloaded survival guides on his tablet, created a digital phantom heading into the wilderness to find himself. The body, meanwhile, waited in the tub. I'd added more hot water twice, kept the bathroom door shut. The apartment's climate control was excellent. Marcus had complained about the expense, but I'd encouraged him to keep it. "You deserve comfort," I'd said, now that comfort was buying me time. By Sunday night, I was ready for phase 2. I drained the tub, wrapped him in shower curtains I'd bought with cash 2 cities over. Getting him to my car was the riskiest part. 3 a.m., service elevator, hoping the building's security was as lax as my reconnaissance suggested. It was. The overnight guard was watching Netflix on his phone. Didn't even look up as I wheeled out what looked like laundry or garbage on a borrowed dolly. The drive took 4 hours. I'd scouted the location months ago, abandoned quarry in the Cascades, filled with water so deep they'd never found the mining equipment at the bottom. Popular with urban explorers, which meant footprints and tire tracks were normal, also meant bodies were occasionally found there. Suicides, accidents, people who underestimated the cold. I weighted him properly, not like the movies where they just tie rocks. That's amateur work. Water changes bodies, makes them bloat, float, travel. You need calculated weight, distributed correctly, accounting for decomposition gases. I'd done the math. He sank immediately. The water was black in the pre-dawn light, mirror smooth. I watched the ripples disappear, then drove home, stopping only to dispose of the shower curtains in 3 different dumpsters behind 3 different restaurants. Back at his apartment, I continued being Marcus for another week, sent a few more emails. "Sorry for the sudden departure. Need time to think. Please respect my privacy." Made some Google searches about Thailand, Peru, places Americans go to find themselves. Then I left the apartment as I'd found it, cleaned but not too clean. Laptop and phone missing like he'd taken them. Some clothes gone, toothbrush absent. The thoughtful touches of someone who'd decided to leave but might come back. The only thing I added was a note on the kitchen counter. His handwriting I'd practiced for weeks. "Gone to figure some things out. Please don't look for me. I'll come back when I'm ready. Or I won't. Either way, this is my choice." I'd written it with his favorite pen. Left it at just the right angle, like he'd hesitated before walking out. A perfect final performance from someone who'd never perform again. His boss waited 2 weeks before calling the police. The investigation was perfunctory. Adult man with history of depression voluntarily leaves. Happens every day. They checked his credit cards, camping gear, cash withdrawals, pattern of someone going off grid. They interviewed friends, who all said the same thing. He'd been withdrawn, talking about needing change. Seemed like he was planning something. He mentioned Thailand, one coworker told them. Or maybe Peru, somewhere far. His parents flew in from Ohio. I watched from a coffee shop across from his building as they entered with the property manager. Saw his mother emerge an hour later, clutching that note. His father's arm around her, both of them looking bewildered but not surprised. "He's done this before," his mother told a detective. I couldn't hear her, but I'd learned to read lips. In college, just disappeared for a month. We thought he'd grown out of it. He hadn't done that, actually. Marcus had told me about that month. He'd been in a psychiatric hold after a suicide attempt, but his parents had told everyone he was backpacking in Europe, even to themselves, apparently. Families are excellent at revision. The missing person report they filed was half-hearted. The detective told them Marcus had clearly left voluntarily. The adults were allowed to do that. They'd keep the file open, but without evidence of foul play. The trail went cold by design. Every few weeks, I'd use one of his prepaid cards in a different state. Small purchases, gas stations, fast food. The kind of charges someone would make driving aimlessly. I spaced them out, made them random. North to Canada, east to Montana, south to New Mexico. A ghost's credit card drawing meaningless patterns across a map. After 6 months, even those stopped. Natural conclusion, he'd run out of money or stopped wanting to be tracked. Either way, the searches stopped too. His parents held a memorial service on the 1-year anniversary. Missing, presumed at peace, the obituary said. I sent flowers, unsigned. The kind of arrangement someone who wanted to remain anonymous would send. His mother probably thought it was from him. I kept his phone active for 18 months, paying the bill through his auto pay until the account finally emptied. Let it die naturally, like a heart monitor flatling. The last vestige of Marcus Chen, ending not with violence but with insufficient funds. And through it all I felt nothing. No guilt, no satisfaction, no relief or regret or any of the emotions that should accompany erasing someone from existence. Marcus had been right about one thing. Disappearing was easier than anyone imagined. The world was eager to forget, to fill the space, to move on. But he'd been wrong about something too. He'd thought there was authenticity underneath our performances. That somewhere beneath all the masks was a real person, suffering. There wasn't. There was just more performance, layers all the way down like those Russian dolls that reveal only smaller versions of the same empty shape. I thought killing someone I cared about, or came closest to caring about, would finally make me feel something real, would prove I had some essential human core, even if it was dark. Instead, it proved the opposite. I was exactly as empty as I'd always suspected, a perfect void wearing a person's suit. And that's when it actually got easier. When I stopped looking for feelings that weren't there. Stopped expecting murder to mean something beyond the practical challenge of execution. Marcus disappeared and I felt nothing. The world adjusted and I felt nothing. His parents grieved and I felt nothing. I was free. Freedom, it turns out, is just another word for nothing left to prove. After Marcus, I stopped pretending I might be fixable. Stopped waiting for some dormant emotion to suddenly bloom. I was what I was, a highly functional void that had learned to simulate humanity well enough to exceed at it. You'd think this would be liberating, and in a way it was. No more searching for feelings that didn't exist. No more wondering if the next experience, the next relationship, the next perfectly executed disappearance would finally make me real. But freedom has a price, and mine was boredom. Have you ever been so good at something that it stops being interesting? That's what happened with my regular life. The nonprofit job, the carefully maintained friendships, the performance of being human, it all became autonomous. I could do it without thinking. Smile at the right moments, generate appropriate responses, comfort the grieving, celebrate the joyful, all while thinking about my grocery list, or the novel I was reading, or absolutely nothing at all. I started making mistakes on purpose just to stay engaged. Small ones. Forgetting a coworker's birthday after years of perfect remembrance. Letting micro-expressions of irritation slip through during donor meetings, using the wrong name for someone's pet. Are you okay? People would ask. You seem off. Just tired, I'd say, recalibrating immediately. Work stress, you know how it is. They'd nod sympathetically, and I'd file away the interaction as data. Humans prefer consistent performance to authentic inconsistency. Even when they claim to want real, they panic at actual deviation from expected patterns. The mistakes weren't enough. I needed something that required my full attention, something that challenged me. So I started hunting. Not randomly. I'm not a serial killer. Those people are sloppy, driven by compulsion they can't control. I'm something more refined. A curator of disappearances. I chose carefully, specifically with the kind of attention sommeliers give to wine pairings. After Marcus, there was Janelle, 43, HR director who'd been embezzling from her company for years. Small amounts, clever methods, but I recognized the patterns. She was also having an affair with her boss's husband. Messy life held together by increasingly fragile lies. I befriended her at a leadership conference, became her confidant, the only person who understood how hard it was to be a woman in corporate culture. When she confessed about the embezzlement one drunk night, I didn't judge. When she cried about the affair, I held her. Sometimes I wish I could just start over, she said, completely fresh. New name, new life, leave all this behind. Why don't you? I asked. Because that's not how the world works. You can't just vanish. I proved her wrong 3 months later, made it look like she'd fled the country ahead of an audit. The money trail led to Costa Rica. The affair gave motive for running. Her husband found the farewell email I'd crafted, explaining she'd been living a lie and couldn't anymore. The beautiful part, she actually had been embezzling. The investigation I triggered by her disappearance uncovered it all. Her vanishing seemed like guilty flight. Case closed. Then there was Robert, 61, tenured professor with a gambling addiction and a predilection for his graduate students. Not illegal. He was careful about power dynamics, waiting until after graduation, but ethically monstrous. His wife knew but stayed for the health insurance. His colleagues knew but stayed quiet for departmental politics. I audited his class on moral philosophy. Ironic, I know. Became his star student. The one who finally got his brilliance. Stroked his ego until it purred. When he inevitably made his move, I played shocked but intrigued. Let him think he was seducing me. I've never felt this kind of connection, he told me in his office, hand on my knee. It's like you see through all my defenses. I did. I saw exactly where they were weakest. He vanished during a research trip to Nevada. Gambling debt collectors finally catching up. That's what everyone assumed when they found his car at a casino. His wedding ring pawned, his credit cards maxed. The security footage I doctored showed him leaving with dangerous-looking men. His body was in a mine shaft 40 miles away. The desert is excellent at keeping secrets. But here's what you need to understand. I didn't kill these people because they were bad. Morality is just another performance, and I'm not pretending to be an avenging angel. I killed them because they were ready to disappear, because their lives were already unraveling, because they built such elaborate lies that vanishing seemed plausible, and because I could. Each disappearance was a masterpiece of social engineering. I learned to forge handwriting so perfectly that experts couldn't tell, became fluent in cryptocurrency to create untraceable financial trails, studied decomposition rates in different climates, depths, and conditions, mastered the art of digital ghosts, making people seem alive online weeks after they'd stopped breathing. The price of all this expertise, I became even more isolated. Not lonely, loneliness requires the capacity to miss connection, but isolated in the way an apex predator is isolated. Nothing left to learn from others except how to better mimic them. My performance of humanity became flawless. I gave a toast at my coworker's wedding that made everyone cry, delivered a eulogy for my beloved grandmother still alive, different grandmother that got a standing ovation, won my nonprofit's Employee of the Year award for my authentic compassion and dedication to others. But perfection is suspicious, so I added calculated flaws, developed a mild anxiety disorder that required occasional sick days, took up therapy, not for help, but to practice vulnerability, created a backstory about childhood trauma that explained my walls. You're so brave for working through this, my therapist said. The fact that you can still connect with others after what you've been through shows real strength. What I'd been through was a perfectly normal childhood with attentive parents and no trauma whatsoever, but she didn't need to know that. The price of getting away with murder repeatedly is that it stops feeling like an accomplishment. It's just another task. Plan the approach, execute the disappearance, manage the aftermath. No different from organizing a fundraising gala or implementing a new database system. Except for the bodies, those required creativity. Janelle went into the ocean, waded with gym equipment she'd bought for her new life in Costa Rica. Robert fertilized the desert. After them, there was Anthony, construction accident at an abandoned building. Maria, hiking tragedy in the Olympics. David, drug deal gone wrong in a neighborhood he'd never have visited. And Susan, suicide that surprised no one who knew about her hidden depression. Each one perfectly tailored to their life. Each disappearance a custom solution to the problem of existence. Why didn't I stop? Because there was no reason to. I felt no guilt to make me quit. No fear of getting caught to slow me down. The police never even looked at me. Why would they? I was the concerned friend, the shocked colleague, the person who'd tried to help. But more than that, I didn't stop because this was the only thing that required my full attention anymore. The only challenge in a life that had become autonomously perfect. Other people have hobbies. I had homicide, and I was excellent at it. Her name was Christine Wu, and she was a data analyst for the Seattle Police Department. Not a detective, not an investigator, just someone who noticed patterns in spreadsheets and thought too much about anomalies. I became aware of her the way you become aware of a security camera that's slightly out of place. A persistent itch in peripheral vision. She attended one of our nonprofit's community safety workshops in November, 6 months after Marcus had vanished. Sat in the back row, took no notes, asked no questions. But she watched me. Not the way people usually watch me, with admiration or attraction or the unconscious relief of being near someone who seems to have their life together. She watched me like I was a math problem that wouldn't balance. "Great presentation," she said afterward, approaching while I packed up my laptop. "Really comprehensive safety tips." "Thank you," I said, deploying smile number 4. Professional but warm. Community safety is something we're really passionate about. Interesting that you emphasized being aware of people who seem too perfect. She tilted her head slightly. Asian woman, mid-30s, wearing a blazer that didn't quite hide the coffee stain on her shirt. Messy bun held up with what looked like a gas station pen. Most safety talks focus on obvious red flags. "Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who blend in," I said. Standard response from our presentation script.
Exactly.
She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Christine, by the way. I work with SPD. Data stuff. Pretty boring." "Not at all. Data analysis is crucial for understanding crime patterns. You'd be surprised what patterns show up when you look close enough." She handed me her business card. "Thanks again for the presentation." I thought nothing of it. People gave me business cards all the time. I filed hers with the others and forgot about Christine Wu. Until she showed up at my coffee shop 3 weeks later. I have routines. Controlled but not rigid. Tuesday mornings at Victrola on 15th. Thursday afternoons at Elm Street. Sunday evenings at Analog. Predictable enough to seem stable, varied enough to seem spontaneous. She was at Victrola when I arrived Tuesday, already seated with a laptop and a cortado. Didn't acknowledge me. I ordered my usual Gibraltar extra shot and took my regular table by the window, caught her watching me in the reflection of her screen. Thursday at Elm Street. There she was. Different table, same casual surveillance, this time with physical files spread across the table, police department headers visible, missing persons cases. By Sunday I was expecting her. Analog was crowded, which should have made surveillance harder, but Christine had arrived early, secured a corner table with clear sightlines. This time she nodded when I entered. Small acknowledgement. I nodded back. Cat and mouse, except I wasn't sure which one I was. I broke pattern the next week. Different coffee shops, different times, but Christine adapted. Never every location, but enough to maintain contact, to let me know she was there. "We should talk," she said finally, appearing at my table at a Capitol Hill spot I'd never visited before. No preamble, just slid into the opposite chair with her perpetual cortado and those files. "About what?" I asked. "Patterns." She opened the top file. Marcus's missing person report. His photo stared up at me. That calculated smile I knew so well. I've been looking at disappearances in Seattle over the past 5 years. There's something interesting about a subset of them. I sipped my coffee, maintained eye contact, projected mild concern. 7 adults who vanished without a trace, all different demographics, different circumstances, no obvious connections. She spread out more files. Janelle, Robert, the others. But they all have one thing in common. What's that? They all knew someone who was very good at making people feel seen, someone who was always there at the right moment, someone who helped them through difficult times. She pulled out a printed spreadsheet. Names, dates, locations, lines of connection drawn in red ink. Someone who attended their memorial services. My name appeared at several intersection points. Not all. I'd been careful about that. But enough. "That's quite a coincidence," I said. "It's not a coincidence." She leaned back, studying me. "It's a pattern, and patterns always mean something." This was the moment where an innocent person would be offended, outraged, demand to know what she was implying. But I understood something about Christine Wu in that moment. She wasn't looking for protests of innocence. She was looking for confirmation. "You're suggesting I'm involved in these disappearances," I said calmly. "I'm suggesting you're involved in something." She closed the files. "I just haven't figured out what yet." "And the police department sent you to confront me?" "The police department doesn't know I'm here. They don't see the pattern because they're not looking for it. Each case is isolated. Different detectives, different precincts. Nobody's connecting dots because nobody realizes there are dots to connect. Except you. Except me." She smiled then, and for the first time it seemed genuine. I've always been good at finding things that don't want to be found. We sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop buzzed around us, normal people living normal lives, unaware of the conversation happening in their midst. "What do you want?" I asked finally. "I want to understand." She pulled out a different file, thicker, older. "This is my sister, Jennifer Wu. Disappeared 12 years ago. Berkeley student. Brilliant. Depressed. Everyone said she ran away. Suicide, probably. Case closed." The photo showed a young Asian woman with Christine's eyes but none of her sharp edges. Softer, sadder, already half gone. "But I knew better," Christine continued. "Jennifer didn't run. She wasn't suicidal. She was murdered. I've spent 12 years learning to see what everyone else misses, getting good enough at patterns to find the truth." "And you think I killed your sister?" "No. You would have been, 16, living on the other side of the country." She touched the photo gently. "But whoever killed her is like you. Someone who makes people disappear. Someone who's very good at it." "There are a lot of missing persons cases," I said carefully. "Not all of them are murders." "No, but some are. And the ones that are," she gestured to her collection of files. "They look exactly like this. Clean disappearances. Plausible explanations. No evidence of foul play. Just people who were struggling, who vanished, and who knew someone like you." I recognized what she was doing. Building a profile, creating a category. She couldn't prove anything about the Seattle disappearances, but she didn't need to. She just needed me to know that she knew. "So what now?" I asked. "You follow me around coffee shops forever?" "Now I watch," she said, "and wait, because people like you can't stop. It's not addiction. It's worse. It's competence. You're too good at making people disappear to quit." She stood, leaving the files on the table, all except Jennifer's, which she tucked back into her bag. "When you do it again, and you will, I'll be ready. I'll see the pattern forming, and this time I'll be able to prove it." She left without looking back. I sat there surrounded by evidence of my work, feeling something I hadn't experienced since childhood. Interest. Christine Wu saw me, not the performance but the architecture underneath. She'd found the pattern in the static. And she was right about one thing: I couldn't stop. But now I had a new challenge. A watcher who knew how to watch. A pattern analyst who understood patterns. The game had changed. Christine Wu made a mistake. She thought she was the cat. For 3 months after our coffee shop confrontation, we danced. She appeared in my periphery with the reliability of a metronome. Coffee shops, grocery stores, the park where I ran on Saturday mornings, never approaching, never hiding, just there, watching, waiting for me to make a mistake. I gave her nothing, lived my life with mechanical perfection, went to work, attended social functions, maintained friendships, even started dating again. An environmental lawyer named Patrick, who collected vinyl records and believed deeply in the goodness of people. Christine followed it all, probably wondering if Patrick would be next. He wouldn't be. Patrick was too visible, too connected, too genuinely happy. The opposite of my usual selections. But Christine was perfect. Think about it. A data analyst obsessed with finding her sister's killer, working alone, outside official channels, telling no one about her suspicions, because she had no proof. Already primed to disappear into her work, her obsession, her need for answers. She'd told me herself she was good at finding things that didn't want to be found, but she'd never considered that maybe something wanted to find her. I studied her the way she studied me, learned her routines, her habits, her single-minded focus that left no room for anything else. She lived alone in a Beacon Hill apartment. No pets, no plants, no boyfriend, or girlfriend, or close friends at all. Just boxes of files and walls covered in connection strings like a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. Her coworkers thought she was brilliant but difficult. Her family, parents in Bellevue, brother in Portland, saw her twice a year and worried about her obsession. She'd been in therapy briefly after Jennifer disappeared but quit when the therapist suggested acceptance. "I don't want to accept it," she'd said, and what I later learned was her final session. "I want to solve it." The beautiful irony was that she'd been right about everything except the most important part. Yes, I made people disappear. Yes, I'd killed Marcus and the others. Yes, I was exactly the type of predator she'd been hunting. But she'd assumed I'd kill again out of compulsion, that I couldn't help myself, that I was driven by some need I couldn't control. She was wrong. I killed because I chose to, and I chose her because she was the only person in 12 years who'd truly seen me. That deserved acknowledgement. I approached her on a Tuesday evening in March. She was at her usual late-night spot, a 24-hour diner in Sodo, where she spread her files across a back booth and consumed enough coffee to kill a normal person. The waitress knew to leave her alone. The cook knew to keep her eggs over easy. Everyone knew Christine Wu was hunting ghosts. "Mind if I sit?" I asked. She looked up, not surprised. We'd moved past surprise months ago, finally ready to confess. In a way, I slid into the opposite booth, ordered coffee I didn't want from the waitress who'd seen this play out before, two regulars who circled each other like binary stars. "I've been thinking about Jennifer," I said. Christine's hand stilled on her coffee cup. "What about her? She wasn't your sister." The words hung between us like a blade. Christine's face went through several expressions: confusion, anger, realization, before settling on something like respect. "How did you know?" she asked quietly. "Because I'm very good at research, and because lies always have seams if you know where to look." I pulled out my phone, showed her the screenshots I'd collected. Jennifer Wu was real. Berkeley student. Disappeared in 2012, but she had no siblings. Only child. Parents died in a car accident when she was 20. Christine was quiet for a long moment, then she was my roommate, my best friend, the only person who ever really understood me. And when she disappeared, you took her name, her identity, her story. I leaned back, watching her process, being the one whose mask had slipped. Christine Wu doesn't exist, does she? You invented her to get close to the police, to access files, to hunt. She laughed. Actually laughed. "You're good. I know. What was your real name?" "Does it matter? That person disappeared 12 years ago. I'm Christine now. Have been longer than I was anyone else." "And Jennifer's killer?" "Never found him. But I found others. 7 disappearances I've linked to unknown predators. 3 I've actually solved, though I could never prove it. Had to watch them walk free." "That must be frustrating." "Not anymore." She met my eyes. "Because now I have you." This was the moment, the reveal she'd been waiting for. The confession that would validate 12 years of obsession. I could see the hunger in her eyes, the need for resolution. "Yes," I said simply. "You do." Her breath caught. "You're admitting it." "I'm admitting that I see you. Really see you." A woman so consumed by loss that she erased herself to find answers. Who built an entire identity around hunting predators. Who's spent so long staring into the abyss that she's forgotten there's supposed to be something on the other side. "At least I'm trying to stop them. You're just the same as you." I leaned forward. "We both make people disappear, Christine. You made your original self vanish, just as thoroughly as I made Marcus vanish. The only difference is methodology. I didn't kill anyone. No, you just killed who you used to be, and you've been wearing her corpse ever since." She flinched. "Truth does that sometimes." "The real question," I continued, "is what happens now. You can't prove anything. I know because you would have already. You can follow me forever, waiting for a mistake I won't make. Or you can accept what you've really been looking for all these years. Which is someone who understands. Someone else who knows what it's like to be empty inside. To perform humanity without feeling it. To be so good at being someone else that you forget there was supposed to be an original." The diner hummed around us. Fluorescent lights. Coffee burning on warmers. The distant clatter of dishes. Real life happening while 2 predators circled truth. "You think we're the same," she said finally. "I know we are. The only difference is you hunt people like us while I hunt people like them." I gestured vaguely at the world beyond the diner windows. "But we're both just highly functioning voids pretending to be human." "I'm nothing like you." Jennifer was already depressed. Already talking about ending things. "You told yourself you were trying to save her, but really, you were fascinated. Watching her disappear bit by bit, and when someone finished what she started, you were almost grateful. It gave you purpose, direction, an excuse to stop pretending to be normal." "Shut up." "You've caught 3 killers," you said, "but you let them walk. Why? Because catching them would mean the hunt was over, and without the hunt, you're just another empty person going through motions." I said, "Shut up. Make me disappear, Christine. That's what you want, isn't it? To be the one who finally stops someone like me. But you can't, because then you'd have nothing left to chase." She was breathing hard now, hands flat on the table. For a moment I thought she might actually try to kill me right there in the diner. It would have been poetic. Instead, she smiled. You're right. About all of it. I am empty. I did watch Jennifer fade with something like fascination. I do need the hunt more than the catch. But you're wrong about one thing. What's that? I don't need to make you disappear. You're already gone. Have been your whole life. The only difference between us? I know I'm wearing a mask. You've convinced yourself the mask is all there is. She stood, dropped money on the table. Keep hunting, Marcus. Keep making them vanish. I'll keep watching. And one day when you finally make a mistake, because emptiness always leads to sloppiness eventually, I'll be there. And then what? Then I'll do what I do best. I'll solve you, not catch you. Solve you. Take you apart like a data set until I understand every variable. And when I'm done, I'll write it all down. Every pattern, every method, every weakness. I'll create a blueprint for catching things like us. Things, I repeated. Not people. We're not people. You said it yourself. We're voids wearing person suits. But at least I'm trying to use mine for something useful. She left then. Walked out into the Seattle night. I haven't seen her since. But I know she's watching, waiting, building her patterns. And I'm still here. Still hunting. Still making people disappear. Because she was wrong about emptiness leading to sloppiness. Emptiness properly cultivated leads to perfection. And I've had so much practice. Marcus is at the bottom of a quarry. The others are scattered across the Pacific Northwest like seeds that will never grow. And somewhere out there, Christine Wu, or whoever she really is documenting it all. We're locked in orbit now. Binary stars circling nothing. Both of us already disappeared. It's been 17 months since Marcus disappeared. 6 months since Christine walked out of that diner. And I need you to understand something. I'm not broken. That's what you want me to be, isn't it? Damaged. Traumatized. Some explanation that makes sense of the senseless. A reason that lets you categorize me as other, different from you in some fundamental reassuring way. But I sleep 8 hours every night. Deep, dreamless, perfect sleep. I wake without alarms at 6:15 a.m., make French press coffee, Ethiopian, light roast, notes of blueberry, and read whatever novel I'm working through. Literary fiction, mostly. I appreciate good character development, even if I can't feel it. My apartment is clean but lived in. Monstera plants by the windows. A reading chair with the perfect indent. Theodore, my tabby who purrs when I stroke him exactly 3 times down his spine, more or less, and he bites. We understand each other. I go to work. Excel at it. The nonprofit just launched a new initiative I designed, community safety workshops that actually work. Ironic, yes, but I'm very good at keeping people safe from people like me. Know thy enemy, and all that. I maintain friendships. Sarah from work gets coffee with me every Wednesday. We talk about her dating life, her sick father, her dreams of opening a bakery. I give excellent advice, remember every detail, send thoughtful texts at appropriate intervals. She considers me her best friend. Patrick and I are still together, 6 months now. He's planning something for our anniversary. I can tell by the way he checks his phone when he thinks I'm not looking. Probably dinner at the Italian place where we had our first date. He'll order the same wine, make a speech about how I've changed his life, maybe even say he loves me. I'll say it back, with feeling I've learned to approximate so well that even I almost believe it. He'll never know the difference. Weekends are for running, the same trails Marcus used to run actually. There's no sentiment in it. They're simply the best routes. Sometimes I pass the bench where he ate lunch. Sometimes I don't notice. It's just geography. I volunteer at the animal shelter Sunday afternoons, walk dogs who trust me instantly, clean cages, process adoptions. The staff calls me their angel. I've fostered 12 dogs this year, all successfully placed in permanent homes, saving lives one rescue at a time. This is what you don't understand about people like me. We're not monsters lurking in shadows. We're your employee of the month, your reliable friend, your perfect partner. We're the people you trust most because we've learned exactly how to earn that trust. My therapist, yes, I still go weekly sessions that I treat like performance reviews, thinks I'm making excellent progress. We talk about childhood memories I've carefully curated, work through feelings I've learned to pantomime. She's particularly proud of my vulnerability around attachment issues. You've come so far, she said last week, learning to let people in after everything you've been through. Everything I've been through. If only she knew I'd manufactured it all. the distant mother, the demanding father, the teenage trauma, all fiction, but consistent fiction, the kind that explains just enough without revealing anything. My actual parents call monthly, lovely people, confused by their successful daughter, who seems to have it all together but never quite connects. They blame themselves, wonder what they did wrong. Nothing. They did nothing wrong. Sometimes people just come out empty. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand the calm, not the storm before it or after it, the permanent, perpetual calm of being exactly what I am without resistance or regret. I don't see Marcus's face when I close my eyes, don't hear his last breath in quiet moments, don't feel the weight of waterlogged limbs when I'm trying to fall asleep. There's no haunting because there's no ghost. Just matter that used to be arranged in a pattern called Marcus Chen, now arranged differently. The others don't visit either. Janelle doesn't whisper about second chances. Robert doesn't lecture from beyond about moral philosophy. They're just gone. Absolutely. Permanently. Peacefully. This disturbs you more than violence would. You'd prefer I was tortured, haunted, paying some cosmic price for playing God. But the universe doesn't work that way. It's indifferent to our actions. Karma is just a story we tell ourselves to make chaos feel fair. I sleep just fine because sleep is a biological function. Guilt would require believing I'd done something wrong. Remorse would mean wishing I'd acted differently. Fear would need the possibility of consequences. None of these apply. Christine thinks she's watching me, waiting for the slip that reveals the monster. But she's missing the real horror. There is no monster, no alter ego, no switch that flips between normal and killer. I'm exactly the same person when I'm ending a life as when I'm saving dogs at the shelter. The same steady hands, the same careful attention, the same absence of feeling dressed up as presence. You want to know the worst part? The thing that would really make your skin crawl if you truly understood it? I'm happy. Not the happiness you feel, that warming rush of joy or contentment or satisfaction. I don't have access to that, but I have something better. Perfect equilibrium. No highs means no lows. No love means no loss. No connection means no abandonment. I wake each day knowing exactly who I am and what I'm capable of. I perform my roles flawlessly, contribute to society, pay my taxes, help old ladies cross streets, and sometimes when someone is already disappearing, I help them complete the process. There's no internal conflict, no wrestling with demons, no dark night of the soul, just clarity. This is what I am. This is what I do. This is how I sleep just fine. Tomorrow I'll wake at 6:15, make coffee, read, go to work, listen to Sarah's problems, text Patrick something sweet, live my perfect empty life. And maybe somewhere in Seattle a person who's already half gone will cross my path, someone whose absence would barely ripple the surface, someone who's been practicing disappearing without knowing it. If they do, I'll help them, not because I need to, not because voices tell me to, not because I can't control myself, because I choose to, because I can, because the world is full of people who want to vanish, and I'm exceptionally good at granting wishes. Christine is out there somewhere building her patterns, thinking she's the hunter, not realizing she's already in my collection, the one who disappeared into someone else's name, someone else's mission, someone else's life. We're all disappearing, constantly. Every cell replaced, every memory revised, every version of ourselves erased by the next iteration. I just make the process more efficient. And I sleep just fine. Perfect, dreamless, 8 hours sleep. Here's what you've been thinking this whole time. I would never what? Never kill, never feel nothing while doing it, never sleep soundly after. You're so sure, so certain of your moral infrastructure, your emotional foundations. But you've never been empty. You've never sat at your grandmother's funeral and had to manually arrange your face into sadness. Never had to study other people's reactions to learn the appropriate duration of a hug. Never had to create spreadsheets to track which emotional response goes with which situation. You feel things. When someone you love hurts, you hurt. When beauty strikes you, you're moved. When injustice happens, you burn with indignation. These aren't choices for you. They're reflexes. Automatic. Reliable as breathing. Imagine losing that. Not dramatically, not through trauma or injury. Imagine you were simply born without it. Like being born without the ability to see color. The world talks about red and blue and green, and you nod along, memorizing which words go with which wavelengths. You learn to say beautiful sunset at the right moments, but it's all gray to you. It's always been gray. Now imagine you're intelligent, observant, good at patterns. You realize early that your gray world is different from everyone else's rainbow, that your absence of feeling isn't normal, that you need to pretend, constantly, to fit in, to be safe, to be loved. So you study, you practice, you become an expert at performing emotions you've never felt. You create algorithms for appropriate responses, databases of facial expressions, decision trees for social situations. You become so good at it that everyone believes you're one of them, better than them even, more caring, more thoughtful, more present. But it's exhausting. Every interaction is a calculation. Every relationship is a performance. Every moment requires conscious effort to maintain the illusion. And then one day you realize something. Some people are already performing their own disappearance, already fading, already ghosting through life with one foot in the void. Marcus, spending his nights researching how to vanish. Janelle, building a house of cards that begged to collapse. Robert, constructing elaborate lies that wanted to be exposed. They were all suicidal in slow motion, death by 1,000 small erasures. If you were me, if you lived in this gray world, maintaining this perfect performance, seeing these people inch toward their own endings, wouldn't you be curious? Wouldn't you wonder if you could help them finish what they'd started? Not out of malice, not from some dark urge, but from the same impulse that makes you straighten a crooked picture frame, the same satisfaction of solving a puzzle, the same calm that comes from completing an unfinished pattern. You'd tell yourself you weren't really killing them. You were just editing, removing the messy margins, creating clean endings to stories that were already tragedies. And when you felt nothing afterward, no guilt, no horror, no weight, wouldn't that be confirmation, proof that you'd simply helped the universe tidy up, that these people had been so ready to go that their absence didn't even register as loss? You're shaking your head. No, you're thinking, even without feelings, I'd know it was wrong. But wrong is a feeling. It's that twist in your gut when you consider harm, that recoil when you imagine causing pain. Without that sensation, wrong is just a word, a social construct, a rule you follow because breaking it has consequences, not because it has meaning. And I'm very good at avoiding consequences. You want me to be punished, not by the law, you know that's unlikely now, but by my own mind, by the weight of what I've done. You need to believe that somewhere inside me, humanity is scratching at the walls, that one day I'll crack and feel the full horror of my actions. I won't. This is the thing that should really terrify you. I'm not unique, not some 1 in a billion anomaly. Studies suggest anywhere from 1 to 4% of the population shares my particular wiring. Millions of us walking around perfectly mimicking emotions we don't feel. Most of us never kill. Why would we? It's messy, risky, requires effort that could be spent on more rewarding activities. We become CEOs instead, surgeons, lawyers, politicians, professions where emotional detachment is an asset. But some of us notice the patterns, see the opportunities, recognize the people who are begging to disappear without knowing it, and a very few of us act on it. Christine knows this. It's why she hunts, not because she thinks she can catch us all, but because she knows we're out there, wearing our person suits, perfecting our performances, making people vanish when it suits us. She's right to watch, right to wait, because the only thing that stops us is inconvenience, and sometimes making someone disappear is easier than maintaining their presence in our performance. You think you'd never do what I've done? You're probably right. You have that inner compass that points toward human and away from monster, that involuntary flinch at causing harm, that automatic empathy that makes other people's pain your own. But if you were me, if you woke every morning in this gray world, if you spent every day performing emotions you couldn't feel, if you saw people like Marcus drowning in their own existence, reaching for an exit they couldn't quite grasp, wouldn't you help them? Wouldn't you make it clean, efficient, peaceful? Wouldn't you sleep just fine knowing you'd solve their unsolvable problem?
You would. You'd have to.
Because in a world without feelings, all that's left is logic, and logically Marcus was suffering. Logically he wanted to disappear. Logically I helped. The real question, the one that should keep you awake at night, isn't whether I'll kill again. I will, when the right person presents themselves, when the pattern completes itself, when the opportunity exceeds the inconvenience. The real question is, how many of us have you already met? How many times have you confided in someone who was categorizing your pain instead of feeling it? How many perfect friends, loving partners, caring professionals in your life are just empty things wearing human masks? We're everywhere. We're everyone you trust most, because we've learned to be exactly what you need us to be. And we sleep just fine. So the next time someone seems too perfect, too understanding, too present, remember this confession. Remember that some of us are performing. Remember that emptiness can look exactly like fullness if you know how to shape it. Remember Christine out there hunting, building her patterns, trying to spot us before we spot the ones who want to disappear. But most of all, remember Marcus, who wanted to vanish, who trusted the wrong person, who got exactly what he was looking for, just not how he imagined it. Because if you were me, truly me, living in this gray world behind this perfect mask, you'd have done exactly the same thing. Wouldn't you? 17 months, 7 disappearances, 0 guilt, and somewhere in Seattle, Christine Wu is still watching, still waiting, still hunting for patterns in the static, while I sit here typing this confession you'll never quite believe, drinking excellent coffee and feeling nothing at all. Sweet dreams.